Good morning, good morning. I'm your host, Tossard Aline.
I'm your co-host, Carl Williams.
We have a special guest today,
I'm attorney Michael Gilmore.
and he's Michael Gilmore is in the house. And so he'll be taking a lot of your questions, some of your questions that you want to talk about as far as the 13th district. And he's an attorney, so it may be some other things you want to talk about. But we'll get right to it, Attorney Gilmore. You have filed a lawsuit alleging what?
Filed a lawsuit alleging that Governor Rick Snyder has unconstitutionally denied every citizen in the 13th Congressional District of their right to vote and their right to be represented in Congress.
Well, I agree with you there. He's been doing it a long time. And it's
Right.
just nice to hear that there's somebody out there that's fighting and is looking at it and ain't scared to call it like it is.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious and blatant. And
Very.
like you said, he's been doing it for a long time. It's not the first time he's done it. He seems to have a reputation of treating Democratic areas differently than Republican areas. Along with some other motivations, which may be tied to money in politics or simply about race. But we're going to flesh out all of the issues and get to the bottom of it and make sure we have a voice. If we can't get a voice in Congress, we'll at least have a voice in court.
Ah, that sounds good. Sounds like you describing discrimination to me.
Well, oftentimes we have race and politics and class so heavily intertwined that you just can't separate them. But no matter how you want to categorize it, it is discrimination against the entire district, which no person in the district at this point has a voice in Congress.
Well, what is the governor saying? Is he saying that we're not supposed to have a special election, or we're going to wait 30 days from the end of that term?
Well, he has decided to schedule an election on a regular election date in August and November, which, like I've been saying, if you schedule an election on a regular election date, it's a regular election, which violates the law, the U.S. Constitution. He's been saying that it will cost too much to schedule a real special election and that he needs to give more time for candidates to prepare, even though he has not legally called a special election. You couldn't sign up for this election if you wanted to.
So there is no special election as we speak.
No, there's no special election. He's scheduled an election on the regular election dates. There will be a different way that the candidates who win that election assume office. That's what will be different. They'll assume office immediately for a 2-month term, which is a joke. And then we'll have another member, perhaps the same person, perhaps a different person, representing the district starting in January 2019.
So normally the terms for a congressman are 2 years, right?
Yes, they run 2 years. We had our Congressman John Conyers resign, enter his retirement in his first session of Congress. Congress is made up of 2 sessions. You got the first year and the second year. And he left in his first session of this Congress, and now we're going to sit empty for an entire session of a year.
So we won't have any representation.
Zero. All of the votes that are coming on the floor, all the votes that are being introduced and passed in the House and passed into law, signed by 45, signed by Donald J. Trump. We will not have a voice in that opposition. We will not have a voice in perspectives on funding. For the budget, for tax cuts, for otherwise. We didn't have a voice in the shutdown or the reopening of the government. We don't have a voice in DACA or immigration matters at all. We don't have a voice in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, any other social programs that are essential to the people in this community. We don't have a voice in Congress, not one single bit.
Hmm.
And when did you first file this suit?
We filed on December 27th.
The 27th? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because I just was wondering, we could maybe amend it and just the man had violated his oath of office. Anytime he violated the Constitution, he had violated his oath of office. And that has been done repeatedly, but nobody seems to bring that issue up.
Yeah, something I'll definitely look into. On first impression, it seems though there are certain people who would be able to bring action for his violation of an oath of office, and I'm not sure that citizens in general can do that. But it's definitely something to be looked into. We will be filing an amended complaint, adding more allegations and charges as the facts have come out in this case. They've been very unsettling at best. So we'll be adding more allegations. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's just something that they've been saying that the citizens can't do it because you got so many politicians out there doing it,
Right.
being in
Right.
court every day.
Right.
If people really understood what that means.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I can't do, or as a citizen or a voter, the Attorney General is of the state of Michigan is left a lot of powers and exclusive powers. However, there is a lot that I can do. So I'm
Correct.
going to do as much as I can. I hope that everybody else does as much as they can. However, we have a lot of folks who call themselves civic leaders in this community, and including legislators in our own state, Senate, and House, who are sitting silently on the sideline on this issue.
And the issue is for a whole session of Congress or a whole year, minus the 2 months, we will have nobody representing us in Congress.
That's the issue. That is the issue. The fact that we are being deprived unjustly, where other districts have not been deprived in very different circumstances. We had Thaddeus McCotter's reelection to fill a seat for 6 weeks in the 11th district, which we know is white, Republican, and rich. They give to Rick Snyder hand over fist in contributions, whereas our district, it is too expensive and too inconvenient to hold a vote, and will be sitting unrepresented for a year.
Wow, let's take a call here. Caller, you on the air. Hello, caller.
She just said
Well,
the phone
call us
and
back.
forgot about us.
Call us back. Caller, you on the air.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yes, I want to thank the young man for his efforts and wish him much success. My question is, are there any other constitutional lawyers out there that would step in to help you in your efforts to sue this governor and help you in this? And is anything that the people can do to help support as well in this violation of the oath and taking away representation from a district that they wouldn't do to any other district in this city, state, or country? I'll hang up and listen, and I thank you for your efforts, and I'll hang up and listen to see if there's anything we can do. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your support and encouragement. You said something very important there, that this is something that they wouldn't do in any other district, city, state, or anywhere in the country. And there's literally a 25-year history nationally where this has not been done in any House district. There are retirements and resignations throughout the country multiple times a year. And so to answer your question, we have a whole team of attorneys actually who are working pro bono on this. And so we need as much help as we can get. So if you go to michaelgilmore.org, you can make a contribution, and that will help advance our case. And that's how you can help me most specifically. But we do have a team of folks who are working on it. We are working tirelessly. It's a very rare issue. So it's very little case law out there. It's very few people who have experience in this type of litigation. And that's what people don't understand. It's so little history that speaks to this, that what happens in this case will be cited for generations to come across the country. And so that's why this is so important, but people don't seem to grasp the importance of this issue, the importance of the litigation, the importance of the delay and deprivation in our rights. So I thank you. If you visit michaelgilmore.org, you can donate today. michaelgilmore.org. Thank you so much.
Now, a senator from Minnesota, what was his
Al
name?
Franken.
Al
Franken,
Franken, the
yeah.
comedian. His seat is already filled.
His seat is already filled, so we have a very special set of rules here. So in the House of Representatives, the U.S. Constitution says that when there is a vacancy in the House, there must be a special election. And that is very specific to the U.S. House. It's a very special place. The House is meant to represent the people, and only the people. It's not meant to represent the state or the government. It's meant to represent the electors. The U.S. Senate is a different case. The U.S. Senate is more so designed to represent the state as a whole. And so an appointment can happen in the Senate by the governor. The governor can appoint a senator when there's a vacancy. That cannot happen in the U.S. House. There must be a special election in the U.S. House.
You know what? It sounds like to me that's the reason for a special election to prevent what is happening now.
Well, interestingly enough, we have two Republican representatives in the U.S. House who resigned around the same time John Conyers left. They from Arizona and Pennsylvania. I believe they resigned in October and December when we had Congressman Conyers retire in December. Those gentlemen from Arizona and Pennsylvania are getting special elections within 3 to 6 months of their vacancy. So by June, they'll have a new representative in office.
Okay.
Here, we won't get one until at the absolute earliest November, which even November is hard to speculate because the way the legislative calendar works, there's a holiday in December for a whole lot of folks. There are elections all across December for the entire country. In November. Those are in November, elections for everybody. And then in December we have another holiday. We have New Year's and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. So a lot of folks are simply off work in Congress. They're not trying to swear in new members. They're trying to fly in, handle business, and fly back out and get back home. So it's very speculative that even with a November general election that we'll have someone assuming that office actually in November. We could literally not see a new member starting until January.
Right. And that's not the governor's call.
It's not the governor's call. We have two sets of boards of canvassers that have to approve the vote, certify the election, and then the candidate will go to the House of Representatives and have to be sworn in, take their oath of office, and actually begin as a member through those procedural processes. And like we saw with Doug Jones, that certification and oath process, it can drag out for an unexpected, unanticipated amount of time. So it's not like we're having an election on November 6th and I'm taking an oath of office on November 7th. It's just not. It just doesn't happen that way.
Right.
Sounds like abuse of power of authority to me, with all the rights being violated.
Well, not only that,
And he's usurping the legislative function of the government.
Yeah, I think he's definitely cutting out a large part. I mean, this district is arguably the most important Democratic district in the country. Though we don't always flex our muscles, we have the power to dictate every statewide election. We have the power to swing elections nationally, the way the votes are coming down between Republicans and Democrats on the ground, voting at home. And so that is something that is very powerful, the fact that Rick Snyder can pluck unconstitutionally an entire Democratic vote out of Congress. We're not talking about suppressing a few voters on the ground. We're not talking about shifting an election. We're talking about taking an entire voting district out of play for a year when we have votes coming down to single-digit numbers in Congress. It's just absolutely unheard of. It's ridiculous, and it's against the law.
well, it's against the law. That's a fact, but it doesn't seem to be many Democrats that understand that, or public officials in Wayne County, in the city of Detroit, that won't open their mouth about it. All they want to do, I guess, was to hold a ceremony and give Conyers a plaque on what a good job he's done for the district, and now the district have to go for itself, huh?
Yeah, we've been quite used to, having receptions and parties and keeping it moving, I guess. But, I really do think that if you don't understand what's at stake or you don't recognize the issue, particularly if you're vying for this seat, then you need to go home and read a book. I just cannot understand how you think we don't deserve representation in 2018, but you believe that we should be electing you in 2019. And I am a candidate for this seat, and I implore other candidates for this seat as well as the governor's seat to speak up as loud as you can about this issue, because this is the most basic issue that we can come across, is our right to vote and be represented in Congress. It's clear as day. So we need folks to stand up and talk about this loudly. Don't go whispering in the streets like some folks have been doing. Stand up like the people have been and talk about it.
Well, Attorney Gilmore, Are you doing this out of vanity, or I'm just going to ask you frankly, what are you doing this for? Because you're one of the most least known candidates.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're the least known, why aren't the other ones supporting you or supporting the idea of we need representation? And they would get more visibility than you would.
Right. So that's a great question. I've been in this race since April of 2017. And so I plan to run in the August and November election since April. And that's a fact that the governor is putting out there. The November, he's put together quite a brilliant marketing package with this. The November election is not going anywhere. And I plan to run very hard in the August and November election and win those too. They're not going anywhere, but that's no excuse for us to sit unrepresented in the meantime. It's just no excuse. And so for someone to say that, I'm doing this to raise my profile, no. I've been fighting for people behind the scenes for a very long time. I've worked with names like John Conyers and Debbie Stabenow. I've organized in the community. I've registered voters. I've done voter protection before, year after year. So it's not something that I've done new. It's just simply that I've been behind the scenes before, and now I've decided to step out front with this campaign. And doing this campaign, I believe that there is no one who should be vying for this seat who thinks it's acceptable for the voters of the district who you intend to represent to go unrepresented for a year while you are actively campaigning for this seat. It's just unconscionable. It's a gross departure from logic and reality.
And how can they be fighting for the people in the 13th district?
Well, first of all, you should not be siding with Rick Snyder. I kill black people for a living, Rick Snyder. It's unacceptable for any Democrat to just jump on board with Rick Snyder haphazardly. If anybody should have their eyes looked out for, it's him, and we know this. He has a history of doing this to Democratic districts, so much so that I knew he was going to do it before he did it on his December 8th decision. We should be standing up and talking about this issue very publicly, not whispering it behind the scenes, because candidates are whispering behind the scenes. They know this is wrong, but they're not willing to stand up and talk about it loudly. So that's the first thing we can do, because the governor has not actually called for a special election. He can literally set the special election, even still, whenever he wants to. He can provide 45 days for military and overseas ballots to go out. Pending that, we can have a special election in March if he decides to today. So we can still be doing this. But whispering behind the scenes like it's a non-issue will never resolve anything.
Well, it is an issue, and with the congressional redistricting that's coming up, is it in 2020?
Probably 2022. So if
2022,
right.
There's going to be a redistricting, so the 13th might be cut out altogether.
Yeah, and that's it's just essential. Like we're preparing to be voiceless, right?
Right.
So there will be some large redistricting going on in around 2020 to 2022 in the state legislature, where our lines will be redrawn and redrawn to the effect that a lot of people are speculating that the 13th district will merge into both the 14th and the 12th, which is a large possibility that folks will, split the vote between Detroit and some of the suburban cities, so that Detroit doesn't have a real voice in the election. And so those are some of the issues that we need to be standing up against. Right now, we just saw I believe it was the Pennsylvania Supreme Court come down saying that their gerrymandering was unconstitutional, and they need to go back to the drawing board and pick a less discriminatory way to draw their districts. These are the type of issues that we need to have a voice in Congress on, where we're sitting here without an entire representative for a year. That we don't have a voice in money in politics. We don't have a voice in gerrymandering. We don't have a voice in voter suppression. Right now, we're fighting the case in this state on straight party voting. Republicans want to take straight party voting out of the state of Michigan entirely. And it's like people, I think we're so used to watching these issues on TV, and they come up a little bit more in truly red states or in the South, that we don't recognize when they're happening to us. But they're happening to us now, and we are waiting until it's too late to fight these battles. We cannot wait until our rights have already been taken. We have to fight them before that, when we see them on the horizon, and we need to defend them every day. And that's what we need to do. That's why we need a voice in Congress right now.
Well, we definitely need a strong voice, but I guess we're talking about no voice or any voice
No,
right now.
I don't care if
Yeah.
we put a high school Democrat in that seat until November. We need somebody casting a vote for us.
True, true. Because, you know, for some reason, I thought when they were redistricting before that it should have been an extra seat for Detroit or the Tri-County area rather than taking a seat away from Congress.
Right.
Because as the population has dwindled out of the state of Michigan, it has been from the suburban regions in the country. I call it the country, outside the city, the agricultural part of Michigan. Since they have less people, then they should have had less representation.
Yeah, I don't think Republicans really care about those factors. I think that they want to split the Democratic vote in a way that we have, as little voting power as we can.
Well, most people, I'm like you, they obviously don't understand the redistricting process. And then we had a lot of turncoats in there. We had Mark Brewer when he was chairman of the Democratic Party. We got Jonathan Kinlock in the 13th district now, this chair. And he's for Snyder. He's representing Snyder because how does he get this?
Defending Rick Snyder.
Chairman of the Democratic Party, 13th district chairman. How do you do that?
Boy.
Well, him and I haven't seen really any other Democrats citing incorrect laws, but he's going around town citing laws that are completely irrelevant in defending Rick Snyder. It's like, you're not even giving your constituents a fair chance. This isn't democracy. It isn't the truth. You're defending Rick Snyder, knowingly citing irrelevant laws. I mean, it's
He
just
does that.
it's just absolutely, I can't wrap my mind around it. How you can call yourself a Democrat and defend Rick Snyder.
Well, they've been doing. Let's take another call here. Caller, you on the air?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, to the attorney. You know that Detroit, when it votes for the school system, vote its will on the city government. The last word is with the financial manager commission. They can approve our vote or disapprove our vote. So, in other words, Detroit is under absolute dictatorship under the commission, the Financial Commission Act. At the same time, the garbage is picked up by a private company, and the snow removal by private company. Cobo Hall, all our assets are controlled by by authorities. Now, tell me something. If you get to Washington and you trying to funnel something back to Detroit, when you have to funnel that back through the authorities and the Financial Review Commission, and it wouldn't actually get to Detroit. So what would that look like when we under absolute dictatorship on the local level? I'm going to hang up and try to, because I can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So there's a very different, just like the Constitution dictates that this seat, specifically in the House, is governed differently than other seats. This House seat is an exclusively federal seat. So you can't dictate how this House seat is operated based on local laws. So, if you have votes that are coming before the city council and so forth that need additional approval, that's one thing. But those same laws do not apply to the U.S. House of Representatives. So when you have support and ideas in legislation that come through the U.S. House of Representatives, that is the end-all, be-all of that issue. If there is any addressing, how those funds are handled, it will be through the judiciary, and only the judiciary, through our federal checks and balances system. And that will be it. So one of the very important things that I want to do is bring more federal jobs to the city of Detroit and the surrounding regions, and take out the locality of government in D.C., which is a national security concern, to have your centralized government all in one place. Kim Jong-un decides to drop a nuclear bomb on Washington, then our whole government is simply dismantled. So bring some of those jobs to Detroit. When leases are renewed for buildings, when agencies are assessing whether they're going to stay where they are or not, we need to bring those jobs to Detroit. There's a low cost of entry in Detroit. It's very lucrative to come to Detroit and be able to hold on to as much of your capital as you can. We have folks who are job ready across the board, from the GEDs to the PhDs. So, yeah, I appreciate your question, but it's not something that I would have to worry about as your next congressman.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that you will be trying to bring some of the jobs here. Congressman Conyers did bring the IRS here. I think that was the wrong agency to bring. I'm glad they're gone now, but it was the IRS, because people would say, well, what have John Conyers done? You know, and you got to think real hard and look around. He did bring some jobs in through the IRS. But you have the Agriculture Department, you have Social Security, who doesn't have a main office here. You know, how does Chicago get all this stuff? You know, the regional office for Social Security, Chicago, the regional office for the agricultural food stamp program in Chicago. How does that happen?
Could you imagine how Chicago would be in uproar if somebody said, if their governor said, you guys aren't going to have a congressional representative for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
We're just going. It would just be unheard of. It's lobbying. You need your member of Congress to lobby for those things, just like you said John Conyers did. We have no one to lobby for us right now.
Well, and then what about, you mentioned Chicago. Well, how come nobody's complaining to the FBI? You know, they would have Snyder's phone bugged by now. You know, because they know they sell these different
Right.
positions. So what has he got? He's got a free pass. Anytime you can poison all those people in Flint.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody
Nothing
says
said.
anything to him. Well, you call him a killer. He's definitely a poisoner.
Well, he's being
One of the-
protected by
one of the
people
special
that's supposed
methods.
to be prosecuted, and that's Rick
Bill
Schuette.
Now, here's something in the Constitution that I keep saying this. This is Article 7 of the Michigan Constitution, Section 22. It deals with charters, resolutions, ordinance, enumeration of powers. Under general law, the electorate of each city and village shall have the power and authority to frame, adopt, and amend this charter, and to amend its existing charter of the city or village heretofore granted or enacted by the legislature for the government of the cities or villages. Now, that section throws people off. I know they heard it before. Their mind goes blank. What the hell is he talking about? The legislature, the Michigan legislature, gave the city of Detroit its charter. There's an election or a review of the city charter coming up where we can amend it for 2018 or not. And we don't know that the citizens weren't allowed to do that in the past. Well, there's a lot of stuff we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, ex-farm boy, recently off the farm. What do we know? But anyway, it says here, granted by the legislature. So the legislature, if they cannot give us a charter anymore, we can mend a former charter that the legislature gave the city, county, or village, then it should be a simple process for your mind to say, hey, wait a minute, they can't change the city charter. They can't make any laws, meaning the legislature, that override the city charter or the constitutional authority that's given to the cities and counties under the Michigan Constitution. We don't want to think about that. And so when he brings up, when Tyrone or anybody else bring up to you about how the governor or the legislature overrode the city charter, they refuse to look at the Michigan Constitution. They refuse to read those sections based on what Boss Man told them. Now, you've been to law school. Why is it that you see the law different from the majority of your peers?
I don't think that people see the law different. I think that people understand. I think everybody understands that this is wrong. I think that a few people have given the governor misguided permission based on their personal preferences. but I don't think it's that people see the law differently. Everybody knows that this is wrong. Everybody is in agreement on that. It's about how loud they're willing to say it, or whether they have personal preferences that tend to lead them in a different direction.
So they may want to be appointed to a judgeship by the governor, appointed to some commission by the governor, or appointed president of some college by the governor.
I can't say what folks' motivation are.
Okay.
I can only say what the law is and what's right, and when you can and cannot take away people's rights.
But we're aware. What you're saying is most of the people are aware of is wrong. I think, well, if the average person in the street knows it, then those esteemed attorneys should know it, shouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Unfortunately, everybody is not an esteemed attorney. And like you said, you have Chairman Kenlock, who is using irrelevant laws to defend Rick Snyder's position. So, folks in certain places perhaps may not have had the opportunity or the foresight to consult an attorney, and simply are going off of their political intuition on what the opportunity may hold, which can often be illegal and misguided.
Well, we know it's illegal. We know when the governor says he's going to take the money from the cities and put it in his pocket first and then give us what he wants us to have, hey, that's a
Right.
violation of the Constitution.
Mm.
They make the laws. Now, we have a mayor that doesn't open his mouth, won't say it's illegal. They have to stop that, taking our money. They have to wait to a review board to say whether or not you're capable of managing your own money. But I'll just tell them like it is. This is a gangster. He has been a gangster from the beginning. I'm talking about Gangster Snyder, our governor. And if they're gangsters and crooks, they steal money. That's what he's come. That's when he came to Michigan, elected to Michigan. It's almost a joke. It's really a joke, and if it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. Or you could laugh about it to keep from crying. He's stealing people's money, and nobody goes to jail. A feigned bankruptcy. This governor actually signed a contract with Kevin Orr, but Kevin Orr, it said this contract is between Kevin Orr and Governor Snyder
Yeah.
to be the emergency manager for the city of Detroit. Where did that come from? How is that legal? You have a contract for an individual to run the city, but that's his individual. Where's that in the Constitution? And then they say, well, that was in Public Law 436. I read 436. I didn't see it. It never said the governor could have a contract with somebody to come in here and pick up the trash for the city.
Didn't.
This man has, and how do we know that? Because it was in the bankruptcy. It was part of the court record. Then we read it. And if you go on the school board, this Detroit Public Schools website, it'll show you Early's. When he was a emergency manager, a contract between Governor Snyder and Early to be the emergency manager for the Detroit Public Schools. These people went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They done went crazy, and all these politicians want is I don't know, is it a fried chicken? They selling out for peanuts. In Flint, we know the preacher said, well, the governor gave us some filters. What was that, a 1995 filter, $25 filter? He was a preacher? He could have bought his own filter? It's ridiculous. The folks are stealing money right out from under our nose, right in front of our face, and they won't open their mouth. This is a serious election that's coming up for this 13th congressional district, and he wants to find some Democrat or some Republican in Democratic clothes that's going to sit there and do nothing. It's not going to fight. I'm talking about Snyder. How is it that a lame duck, somebody that won't be around next January, still have all this influence? And all these black folks are scratching and bowing. I know you can't say that, but I can say it about them. They scratching and they bowing and they trying to kiss up to the governor, and they still don't have anything.
No opposition.
Yeah, it's no. I mean, that's pretty much the bottom line. It's no opposition. When you have, I mean, at this point, we have Democrats, folks who call themselves Democrats, siding with the governor, the Republican governor, who shouldn't even be in office. I mean, it's just no backbone. We just have no backbone. We're going in the wrong direction. So we really need some really strong liberal folks in there who are not tied down with the purse strings that the people who are in office are now, to stand up for the voice of the people, get back to our roots, and listen to folks on the ground. And that's where direction should come from, not from Rick Snyder.
Well, Rick Snyder has lied about everything. He's going to have a speech. Isn't that the day? He's
I
going to
believe
give
it
his
State of the state.
State of the State message, address, and he's going to tell what a great thing he did for the schools. He took the schools down. I don't know where they were at now, 10th place to 43rd in the country.
Yeah.
The school district
You're
is
going backwards.
43.
That's great, huh?
And then they wonder why they didn't get the Amazon contract. What do they think they're going to get from Amazon or Google and folks can't read,
Yeah, absolutely.
can't count?
Nobody's focused on education or job readiness.
Now, he shuts the schools down all across the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they hammered Detroit, but even the suburban school districts were forced to consolidate
Oh yeah, absolutely.
or go under. Rather than close them, they said, well, you got to consolidate. So you know what they're going to do with all the school buildings. They had to sell them. They had to lay off the teachers that they didn't need. You know, this guy is crazy. He's pathetic. And he's worse than DeVos. He's talking about DeVos, Secretary of Education.
Yeah.
Man, this guy, he's a lunatic. Let's take some calls. We got some callers on the line. Caller, you on. Thanks for holding.
I want to say thank you. Thank you to your guest for having the courage to go to court. And is it possible for other citizens to join in on the lawsuit? Is that needed or what?
We can't hear you, caller.
You're kind of muffled.
I think you asked if citizens can join in on the lawsuit.
Oh, is it correct?
Yes, ma'am. You can join in the lawsuit. We need as much help as we can get. Do need financial support. You can visit michaelgilmore.org to donate. If you don't have the internet, you can send a check to P.O. Box 21156, Detroit, Michigan 48221, and put on the letter special election. Yes, we need as much support as we can get. We have a team of attorneys who are working on this pro bono for free. So we need support. Filing fees are coming out of my own pocket. We're not backed by any of the big institutions that you would generally think would be protecting your right to vote. So yes, we could use your support in that way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Caller, you on there?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Two quick questions. One, is the 13th Congressional District is Southwest Detroit in the 13th Congressional District?
Yes.
Yes, parts of it. There's a map on my website. It kind of weaves in and out of Southwest Detroit. Visit michaelgilmore.org, and under Issues in the 13th, you can see an interactive map, and you can zoom in on your address or
Because I
specific
tried to
location.
pull up a map on Google, and it was not showing that. The reason why I'm asking that question is because what's going on with them with the deporting folks out of that area. And they don't have representation?
From there, well, like I said, the 13th and the 14th district kind of intertwine through Southwest Detroit. So it depends on which side of the border you're on. If you're in the 13th district, anywhere in the 13th district, you do not have representation.
Right.
And so, like we saw with the Garcia family just the other day, I believe that that's in the 14th district. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were a citizen of Lincoln Park, which is not in the district. But it just depends on where you live. But anybody in the 13th district, no citizen, black, white, in between, rich or poor, in between, no one has a voice in Congress. No one has a vote. There's folks in the office you can call and they'll pick up the phone. but you cannot ask for a yes or no vote on DACA issues or other immigration issues, on the children's health insurance program, which affects 9 million children across the country, which Republicans let expire and extended for 2 measly months. You know, we're just being handed these little table scraps every here and there. And if you don't like it, you do not have someone that you can call if you live in the 13th district to voice your concerns about it. That is correct.
Do you think people are not as upset as they should be because they don't understand what the what Congress people do? And for example, you need to have to get a passport in one day. You have to have an executive order signed by the congressperson to go to Chicago to get that passport in one day. I mean, these are things that people don't realize that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So I'm confused on whether people don't understand what's at stake or are not paying attention to the level of deprivation of the rights that are being taken away from us. It's particularly from the folks who are running for this seat. Everybody on the ground is saying the same thing. Everybody thinks that we should have a voice in Congress. I have yet to find more than 3 people who don't. But I also believe that if you don't understand what's at stake, or you're not paying attention to this basic civil right, then you should not be running for this seat. I will never support someone in this election or otherwise who is running for this seat and doesn't think that we should have a voice in Congress, or doesn't have the awareness to call for such a voice in Congress. It's a great point.
Last question, real quick. Do you think Snyder and the rest of the Republicans are trying to get name recognition out there for someone in particular? That's why they want all this time.
So I'm not.
And I'll listen to you off the air. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Thank you. I'm not really sure what his motivations are. I do know that the money runs deep in this community, and a lot of folks who call themselves Democrat often vote with Republicans and are defending Snyder. So I can't, the level of issues that are going in the wrong direction at this point, you have to really examine who your state legislators are, who your state senators are. You need to examine their voting records. Now we're hearing rumors that folks are not even voting at all. And then you need to examine their financial records. Those are all public records, which you should be able to pull up online. The folks that are giving them money. You need to look at those organizations, look and see who they're tied to, look and see if they're giving Joe Schmo state legislature out in Inkster $100,000. Are they doing the same thing for Rick Snyder? And if that's the case, those are some red flags that should immediately come up for you. And I know I'm not talking about anybody specific or any specific dollar amounts, because, that just wouldn't make sense. It's just an example. So those are things that we definitely have to look at. It does feel like, at this point, it feels like Republicans or the Republican Party is literally inserting Democrats as state legislators, quote unquote Democrats. That's what it feels like at this point. So we really need to be examining these things and examining who we are voting for, who we're putting our support behind. Just because they look like you does not mean that they are for you. So we definitely need to keep an eye out for these tactics.
You're right with that one. Let's take another call. Caller, you on the line?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good
You know what? I've heard a $2 million price tag attached to a special election. For them not to hold a special election, $2 million is an awful cheap price to be placed on democracy. Because the people in the 13th district, and I'm in the 14th district, okay? But, I mean, we are all Detroiters. And, the people in that district, as you've already said, and it's been said since you come out of the top of the hour, the people will not have a voice until January of 2019. And there is no reason that a special election could not be held, by March. I mean, I just heard that Warren Evans now jumped in the water. Okay. But, this is ridiculous. I mean, and then, too, when you place money before people, we can see what happens when you do that. Let's just take a drive up, 96 or 75, about 100 miles from here, Flint. And we saw what happened when you put money before people. So, I mean, $2 million, that's That's a god-awful cheap price to be put on democracy to the point where the people in the 13th district are not going to have a voice in that seat until 2019.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. So even if we do go with the $2 million number, there are 658,353 citizens in the 13th congressional district. You divide those two numbers and you get $3.03 per person. To me, that's an easy answer. We need to be having a vote. I mean, if you want my $3, let's do it. But even considering that fact, we know that the $2 million number is inflated. And the governor has packaged this very nicely. So he's thought about this marketing plan on how he's going to pull this one over. He's inflated that number. He's using the language, anywhere you read his statements, he says up to $2 million. And that language means no more than $2 million. And we already know this is an inflated number because when he did hold a special 11th in the 11th district to replace Thaddeus McCotter, Republican,
and you know
for
what?
6 weeks, that special primary only cost about $600,000. So we would need a special primary and a special general. You double that number, you're talking about less than $1.3 million. I don't know where he's gotten this up to $2 million from. It's simply Republican marketing.
Yeah, because you know what? I was thinking, in terms of McCotter, how much did it cost for them to hold that special election?
$600,000
to get
for the
McCotter's
primary
area over there straight. But you know what, man? I mean, I would be so glad. God forbid Schuette gets in there, okay? Because we don't need to have any more of this Republican dictatorship that's been there for the last 7 years to be continued with Schuette. I'm going to listen offline. Okay, thanks.
I appreciate your last comment, but you also bring up the point that even if we do get a Democratic governor, I mean, what is a Democratic governor to do with a state Senate and a state House that is majority Republican? And I believe that being in the minority is not an excuse. However, we need to be paying attention to why the Republicans are in the majority. And it's not because they have the numbers. We need to address the redistricting issues immediately. We need to address all of the partisan issues that are suppressing our voting numbers, and that's just another reason why we need to have a voice in Congress. And so that's what we're going to keep fighting for. And I hope you visit michaelgilmore.org and make a contribution to help us out.
Caller, you on the line?
Hello. I just wanted to make this quick statement, which is very factual. I wanted to ask Michael a question, which you basically touched bases on yesterday. Who did Rick Snyder meet with to determine? I'm gonna say, what mayor did Rick Snyder meet with to determine that the 13th congressional district should not have representation right now?
So according to
also, and I want to say this too, that same mayor is not backing anyone for the governor's race, and I wonder why.
Right.
Thank you for taking my call.
So it's really unfortunate. So we have 12 municipalities, well, depending on what you consider a municipality. There are 12 different cities, 13 cities in the 13th congressional district. And Rick Snyder consulted one of the mayors. And from the articles that I read, in all due fairness, it appears that Mike Duggan is not happy with the candidates that are out there. He thinks that we need a stronger candidate. And so that's why he's not backing anybody now. I think that he was on, I don't know, the pool of folks who asked Senator Peters to run. But I mean, I'm not a spokesman for Mike Duggan, and that probably will never happen. So I can't say either way. But I do think it's very unfortunate that out of all of the municipalities that we have in the 13th congressional district, according to Rick Snyder, he only consulted 2 people.
Interesting. Let's take another caller. Caller, we're down on time. You have to make it quick.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, I missed getting the phone number and the P.O. box number, and I'd appreciate it. I'll hang up, but I want to congratulate the young man for what he's doing. So I'll hang up if you'll give that before you go out. Thank you.
Give us your report.
Thank you thank you guys. And I want to. Yesterday I was on with Miss Theo Broughton, and she made the comment that I need to start giving out my phone number because a lot of folks don't have internet and whatnot. And I definitely understand that. So write this phone number down. This is a direct contact to me. I think that if you have any elected official or civic leader who will not give you their cell phone number, you need to not support that person because that's funny business right there. So write this number down. It's 313-231-3329. So that's a phone number to get in contact with me. The P.O. Box that you can mail checks to is P.O. Box 211156, Detroit, Michigan 48221.
How many numbers are those? That 4 or 5?
It's 3 ones, 211156, Detroit, Michigan 48221. And you have to make checks out to Committee to Elect Michael Gilmore. We are getting permission from the Federal Election Commission to fund the lawsuit with my own campaign expenses. We have to get special permission for that. That is in the process, just for full disclosure, because we don't have the backing of the organizations who would typically fight for our right to vote and our right to be represented in Congress. So thank you so much. You can also go to michaelgilmore.org if you do have the internet or your cell phone, make a contribution there.
And that phone number again, your phone number?
It's 313-231-3329.
You know, you said something, and I'm just wondering, with all the lawyers and different people out there, what we need to be doing, which I might end up doing it myself, we need to petition this governor and demand that he do his job.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because people don't realize it's not too late. Part of the hypocrisy, and I know we're running out of time, part of the hypocrisy of the governor's marketing ploy, he's going around town saying that he wants to give candidates more time to prepare, but he has not officially called a special election. He has to send a letter to the Wayne County elections clerk and say that this is the actual procedure for the special election that I have called. He has not done that.
He still to do his duty.
That's like the Flint water case.
Yeah.
He didn't put in for the emergency letter. He said, well, the city didn't ask for it. We didn't first. And when Flint put in for the emergency request for the help, then he said, well, the county had to do it. And the law says either one.
Yes.
The county, Genesee County, or Flint could have put it in. So it is a stalling tactic, and that's what he does. He stalls.
Yeah, it's a failure to act.
Yeah.
He's a public official.
Well, as some callers on the line, and caller, we thank you for calling, but we just couldn't get to you in the nick of time. But we appreciate Attorney Gilmore for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And giving us some of this interesting information.
Absolutely.
And would you say you coming back again?
I hope he come back again.
Well, I'll be here whenever you ask me to. And if you have questions that you want to answer today, we will be on the next hour with Reggie Amos and crew. So stick around, call back in.
Okay, so he's not going anywhere. We're the ones who's got to get out of here. Yeah, you know, they always get us to go. We don't want to go, but they say we got to leave here. We don't care where we go, huh? All right, I'm your host, Hassan Aline.
Co-host Carl Williams.
And we had a special guest with us, Attorney Michael Gilmore, and he's going to be here, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And those questions you wanted to ask, you can ask. So we're taking a quick station break for a ID. Take us on the way, Mr. Engineer.